Hi there everyone, welcome back. The BetterPress system from Spellbinders is an exciting must-have tool for your paper crafting studio. I tried 20 or so experiments with the Spellbinders BetterPress and Altenew July 2023 release to show you techniques you would have never thought to try. The July 2023 Altenew release contains so many exciting items. If you're curious to see more from this collection, Altenew is hosting a video hop with even more inspiration from my crafty friends. One of the unique items to come out of this release are the BetterPress plates. Spellbinders has graciously sent me a pre-release BetterPress system, so you'll notice small differences in packaging, but otherwise you'll get the same items in your BetterPress box. The BetterPress system is linked in the description box, as well as all the new Altenew goodies new for this month. Of course, you'll get a lovely how-to guide with step-by-step instructions and tips and tricks. This is the platen. It's what holds your cardstock in place. There are register marks for A2 and A7 panels. 3 shims. If you use thicker cardstock, then you may need to remove some of these from your system, but otherwise I use all 3 for my setup. And these sit on top of the chase, but underneath the magnetic platform. This is the completed chase setup, and this is what your BetterPress plates will rest on. There are 4 spring-loaded and magnetized pegs that hold the chase to the platen. Also in the box is the best ever craft tape and the BetterPress Ink. Finally, to complete the BetterPress unboxing is this exclusive BetterPress plate and a sampler pack of BetterPress cotton card panels. You'll get 3 different colors, which I'll cover later, but I'm sure you're eager to see how this tool works. Then I'll show the gorgeous Altenew items that pair perfectly with the BetterPress system. I set my BetterPress system up differently than the how-to guide. I start by separating the platen from the chase. Then with one of the cotton card panels, I'll align the A2 register marks on the magnetic chase to the cardstock. The best ever craft tape is what holds the cardstock to the platen. I prefer to make tape rolls and adhere them to the back of the cardstock. Then press the platen to the adhesive, thus picking up the cardstock in the process. I'll set the cardstock and platen aside. If you have the Glimmer system from Spellbinders, this is relatively the same sandwich, by the way. Okay, so anyway, with the cardstock in place, I'll pick up the placements of the BetterPress press plate using the register lines on the magnetic chase. Then I'll apply BetterPress Jet Black ink to the outline surface of the press plate. I'll bring back the platen to the magnetic pegs on the chase, ensuring that I don't press on the platen to prematurely transfer the BetterPress ink. Now we are ready to press. I have the original Spellbinders Platinum die cutting machine with an 8.5-inch platform. Now I just have to run this entire sandwich through my platform. And once I remove the platen from the chase, the ink is instantly dry, and I have this beautiful debossed texture. The result is this professional and sensory experience unique to the BetterPress system. You really can't help but run your fingers along the outline of the image to feel the debossed texture. I'm going to rotate my platen 180 degrees and press this image to the second half of my cardstock. And after adding one of the coordinating sentiment press plates to my panel and adding black splatter to fill the empty spaces, that's a quick and easy card using everything included in the BetterPress system. So let's break this system down a little bit. I have had a few months to think about how else and what else to use with the BetterPress system. I'm sure other crafting companies are going to want to incorporate their designs with this system, like how Altenew added hot foil plates and now BetterPress press plates. So far there are 3 colors of cotton card panels: Porcelain, a bright white; Bisque, a neutral off-white; and Pebble, a sophisticated neutral gray. According to the Spellbinders website, these are specially made cotton panels made to withstand and retain the texture of the press plates and accept the BetterPress specialty ink. With that in mind, I also tried other cardstocks in the BetterPress system. Arches watercolor paper is also 100% cotton. However, there are other ingredients in watercolor paper like sizing that are great for watercoloring but may possibly interfere with retaining texture. Also along the watercolor paper line is the Altenew watercolor paper pad, also 100% cotton. Unlike Arches, the Altenew watercolor paper is smooth because it's made for stampers. I was hoping to compare the two to see which gives a better press plate texture. And finally, my standard stamping cardstock. This is Nina Solar White in 110 pounds. This paper is smooth, bright white, and most likely made out of tree pulp, not cotton. The papers are my independent variables. My control variable is this plate from Altenew. New for July 2023 is the Floral Engravings press plate. I have not used any ink on this plate, nor will I use ink to press onto any of the previously shown panels of cardstock. I will do 2 blind presses of the Floral Engravings image on the same panel, like how we demonstrated on the first card. This way we can compare the definition of texture from the press plates on these different surfaces. The cotton card panels from Spellbinders are going to be the gold standard. There is little warping from the press plates, and the texture and detail is phenomenal. I'm scrutinizing the detailed lines in the flower petals and the veins in the leaves. The Arches cold-pressed watercolor paper held some texture, but the cold-pressed texture from the watercolor paper manufacturing process contradicts the BetterPress press plate. I did not like this, so I won't be doing that again. The Altenew Cold Press 100% cotton panel is smoother than Arches. There is a little more buckling and warping than the Spellbinders cotton card panel. However, I feel like I could fix both of these by removing 1 or 2 of the shims underneath the magnetic chase. Finally, the Nina Solar White barely contained the press plate texture. I can see it on camera, but I could barely feel it when I ran my fingers across the debossed lines. In summary, the Spellbinders cotton card panel and the Altenew 9x12 watercolor paper work well in the BetterPress system. However, the cotton card panel is smoother, so the range of debossed and surface texture is more drastic than that of the Altenew watercolor paper. Either way, I was able to use the Spellbinders BetterPress ink in Wildberry on both panels of cardstock with great results. The Altenew cardstock is thicker by weight and dimension, so the inked details are bolder than on the Spellbinders cotton card panel, but I'm impressed by the versatility either way. Speaking of ink, the BetterPress ink is proprietary to Spellbinders. Its formulation is unique to the BetterPress system, and it is going to give the most uniform, crisp detail, quick drying time, waterproof, permanent, and acid-free impression as expected. There are currently re-inkers for every color available at Spellbinders right now. Before I pick candidates for experimenting with the BetterPress system, I did a little research on the formulation of the BetterPress ink. This ink is made by and is similar in formulation to Ranger Archival ink. The Ranger Archival ink is an oil-based dye ink pad according to a Ranger blog post from June 14, 2022. The felt pad itself is firm, unlike the spongy texture of a pigment ink pad. This time, I will keep the cardstock choice the same. I'm using multiple cotton card panels in Pebble. The BetterPress ink is the gold standard, of course. Then I have Altenew's Obsidian ink. This ink is an oil-based black pigment ink with a firmer pad. Next, I have Altenew's Permanent Black Crisp ink. This is a dye formula that resists alcohol-based markers and watercolor when dry. It is my go-to for stamped outlines. Finally, I'll use Jet Black Fresh Dye ink from Altenew. In the Dainty Flower Garden, I want to observe a few things from this inked impression. Clear definition between detail lines, ink feathering from overstamping, and a rich, saturated black line. I'm using the bold lines in Beautiful to compare the opacity. And if you're curious too, all 4 of these inks dried by the time I lifted the platen from the chase. So you can immediately admire and touch your BetterPress impressions. The results of this is hard to show on camera, but right away I noticed the water-based dye formula pools up on the surface of the press plate, kind of like how a photopolymer stamp will pool the ink if it's not conditioned. The resulting impression is not nearly as black as the BetterPress ink, nor is it as consistent as shown in the word beautiful in the sentiment. Same with the permanent black ink. I got more of a solid impression, but it wasn't as void black as it could be. Now, between the Obsidian Pigment ink and the BetterPress Jet Black, I can only tell a difference between the detail lines. There is just a little bit of a loss of definition with Obsidian Pigment ink, but only in comparison to the BetterPress ink. Of course, the BetterPress ink is going to be perfect, as expected, with the system, but regardless, I ended up with 4 decent cards for mass production, and the texture is just amazing. As a crafter, one of the things I consider when purchasing a new tool is its versatility. For example, the Altenew stamp wheel doesn't just act as a stamp positioning tool. You can stencil, mirror stamp, wreath stamp, precision stamp, mix media. In other words, I don't want one tool for just one job. Now, this is important. Steel cutting dies were too thin to press onto the cotton card panels. I did not want to add more shims because I ran the risk of cracking, warping, or cutting the platen, kind of like your acrylic cutting plates. So that's a no on the steel cutting dies. What about hot foil plates? The hot foiling plates are significantly thicker than the BetterPress press plates. I did not want to try this on my platform again because I didn't want to damage the platen or my platinum machine in general by forcing the sandwich through the rollers. So that is also a no on foil plates in the BetterPress system. Now, in my trials, and I tried many press plates, I was able to successfully use the BetterPress press plates to hot foil with the Spellbinders Glimmer hot foil system. As long as the cardstock surface could accept foil, I could foil with the press plate. The only thing is now I don't have the impressive debossed texture. So here's the black cardstock with a Spellbinders rose gold foil, and I'm using the Floral Engravings press plate from Altenew. This is Pebble cotton card panel with a silver foil, gold foil on porcelain cotton card panel, pewter foil on Nina Solar White in 110 pounds, and opaque white foil on Nina Desert Storm 100-pound cardstock. I tried this on 80-pound with inconsistent foil transfer. So hot foiling with BetterPress press plates is a huge win, and I love that whether these BetterPress plates come from Spellbinders or Altenew, I can use either of them to foil as well. If you want to use both a BetterPress press plate and a hot foil plate on the same card, I recommend doing this in 2 separate steps instead of having both plates on your Glimmer system at the same time. We covered differences in paper, ink, and medium. The last thing I want to try is embellishing with the BetterPress system with coloring mediums we are familiar with. On this panel of porcelain cotton card, I opaque white hot foil transferred the Altenew Floral Engravings design. I used the new Golden Sunset Fresh Dye ink set from Altenew to ink blend resist on top of the hot foil. I was more concerned as to how the cotton card panel would accept ink. Once the ink dried and leveled out, I still got fantastic gradients and bright color saturation. On another panel of porcelain cotton cardstock, I used gold foil and the Floral Engravings press plate. I used Tahitian Terrace dual-tipped pens from Altenew to color over the foil and on the cotton card panel. I was able to easily blend colors on the cotton card panel and still got rich colors using these pens. On this panel of porcelain cotton cardstock, I used matte black foil. For this trial, I wanted to see how well the cotton cardstock accepts alcohol-based markers. I used the English Country Garden Artist alcohol markers from Altenew to quickly color one bloom in Floral Engravings press plates. Because of the loose structure of the cotton panel as opposed to a sturdy cardstock like what I typically use for stamping like Nina Solar White, the alcohol-based marker is prone to feather a little bit more, so I would recommend lighter applications of alcohol-based markers on cotton panels. I'm going to stray away from foil now and move to the BetterPress ink. As advertised, the BetterPress inks are waterproof, and to demonstrate that, I used the larger flower motif from Dainty Flower Garden press plate on porcelain cotton card panel. I colored this image with Islands of Fiji dual-tipped pens with vibrant color intensity and easy blending as shown with the foil example. In this card, I used a panel of Altenew 100% cotton, cold-pressed watercolor paper, and BetterPress Jet Black ink. I quickly colored the flower with the 36 watercolor pan set to see if the sizing of the watercolor paper would disrupt the watercolors or the BetterPress ink. This was a definite win for color saturation from the Altenew watercolor, texture from the BetterPress press plate, and solid lines from the BetterPress ink. Finally, I used the BetterPress Jet Black ink on Nina Desert Storm 100 pounds to essentially stamp the BetterPress press plate. There is no debossed texture on this cardstock. I used the new Deco Garden Fresh Dye ink set to apply abstract color blocks to fill in this dainty flower garden. The stamp images I used are from Sketched Florals stamp set, also new for July 2023 from Altenew. So mixing the BetterPress ink with the Fresh Dye ink formula from Altenew also works very well. I'm so excited to see these two companies work together. What I'm hoping for in the future is even more cardstock colors from Spellbinders, so I can blind press a black panel of cardstock. Also, possibly an ensemble from Altenew that includes a BetterPress press plate, layering stencils or stamps, and a coordinating die so that I can press an outline with a press plate, use layering stencils or layering stamps to color the outline image, then die cut the shape. Hey, you don't get what you don't ask for, so sometimes you just have to put the stuff into the universe. Anyway, this is just one small component of the huge July 2023 release from Altenew. My crafty friends are making amazing things with this release. Please make sure to interact with their channels by leaving a comment, subscribing, and liking their videos. If you're new to my channel, please make sure to subscribe and leave me a comment as well. You'll be entered into a giveaway hosted by Altenew. Details on that in the description box, as well as all the crafty items I used in this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.